The METUS Tech Show.
Welcome to the METUS Tech Show, a show for HVAC professionals by HVAC professionals.
The METUS Tech Show.
Introducing.
All right, so obviously with a name like yours, it's an Italian name, so you're probably very familiar with Italian food, but I heard earlier that you actually married an Italian woman from East Boston whose family owned a deli.
Yes, I did, Paul.
Yeah, so what's her cooking like?
Her cooking is very good.
Yeah.
it'll make you very fat very quick.
Well, that's what Italian food is for.
Yeah, that's true. You know, it shows love, I guess, is what they always say. You know, get to a man by his stomach, and the food is what they usually say.
And the bread. Gotta have the bread.
Yeah.
And the dipping
Dip the bread
olive oil.
Well, Paul had asked me earlier, Steve, is it gravy or is it sauce? And I got to be honest with you, they're coming from, not from the city, coming from the suburbs and marrying someone from the city. It's all gravy in the city.
Gravy.
It's not sauce.
Yeah, it's not sauce.
And it's like we get in these big arguments at home about it. It's just that. And it's
So what do you think is the best dish your wife makes?
Best dish my wife makes is, I'm going to say it has to do with the gravy, is probably the bolognese sauce, you know, with the gravy.
Yeah.
The meat sauce is really good with the homemade pasta is another thing
Yeah,
that really comes into play. So once you know how to roll pasta, it's pretty good. You know,
Yeah, it's
not
an
out
art
of the
form.
box. It's
No,
not
yeah,
out of the
no.
box. You know, when you can make it on your own, it's a whole different thing. And I'm going to say probably even the homemade ravioli.
Oh, that's good. Oh, yeah.
If you've never had homemade ravioli, that's a good thing to have when they're about as 5 inches square. I'm going to call it. You probably eat 2 or 3 of them. That's it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, those big ones.
Yeah, but then a holiday comes and they have to make 5 dozen of them. You know what I mean? And you're only having maybe 12 people to your house. It's like, okay. And then you have 3 dozen left over that I have to eat.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Yeah,
that's awful.
true. That's
Yeah,
what I
my
meant by getting
favorite-
fat. So
My favorite Italian restaurant, they always have a fresh pasta of the day. And you can add that as a side to your dish. But they specialize in a lobster ravioli with a white, I think it's like an Alfredo Parmesan sauce. It's incredible. And they only give you 4 raviolis, and it's almost, I want to order that just for myself. But it's so good, and you can just taste the difference in fresh pasta.
Something makes a difference.
You ever made fresh pasta, Paul?
Yeah. No, I don't make it. No, I don't make fresh pasta. I don't have the patience for it.
Yeah.
But when you have it and it's homemade and it's fresh pasta, there's nothing like it.
No,
You know,
it's an art. It's truly an art.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a restaurant in Leominster, Massachusetts. We were talking about it earlier. It's called the Il Camino. And I've had Italian people tell me it's like your grandmother's in the kitchen cooking. I just know the food is good. I judge every time I go to an Italian restaurant, I get the chicken parm.
Yeah.
And if there's homemade pasta, I'll get that. But they got some really good chicken parm there, and that's how I rate an Italian restaurant. It's the first thing I have to have.
I either go after the chicken parm or the veal ossobuco, one or the other.
Ossobuco's
The
good.
veal ossobuco is a real good dish too. And those two are if I'm going out to eat Italian food, those are my 2 go-tos.
Yeah.
Definitely my 2 go-tos.
Yeah, you can't go wrong.
Yeah, and then you got to put the bread in.
You need bread.
Put the bread in the oil.
Yeah.
You got to put
Yes.
that in
Oh,
there,
yeah.
too.
When I go out to eat and they don't serve bread, when I get there, I don't go back to that restaurant. I got to have the bread.
Oh, when they charge you for the bread, Steve.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
I don't
that's
wanna
crazy.
be-
No. Yeah, the Il Camino has a dish. It's just olive oil and garlic and parsley with the homemade pasta. And you add a little salt to it. And then the bread, that bread's got to soak up the olive oil. And
Oh, yeah.
That's what it's for.
That's exactly what it's for.
This is why I look like I look.
So tell us a little bit about that deli your wife.
That was called Corner Cold Cuts in East Boston, and I mean, she always is telling me, I was 7, 8 years old. I knew how to use the slicer, and I'd cut the mortadella, I'd cut the cheese, and then she'd tell me, how she would make the cheese steaks and everything, and then her and her aunt and her mother, it was a big thing. They made arancinis in the back, and they, if you don't know what arancinis,
No, I don't.
Just rice and a little bit of a breadcrumb on the outside, and it's meat and peas on the inside. And then they put a little gravy over them. and they're about as big as baseball to a softball, I guess is what you'd probably say. Good baseball
I've never heard of
size,
that.
and
No.
they're really good. And they became like real popular there. And everyone would come in and get Argentinis all the time for it. But that was how it all went, and they had done that for a long, long time, so it was always, the cheeses and the cold cuts especially. It's just, you got to have fresh cut cold cuts.
yeah.
So if I go to Market Basket and bring back cold cuts, were these cut at the deli or did you just pick them up out of the bag?
Oh, yeah. You get yelled
Oh,
at.
like, I got them cut at the deli. Don't worry, that was a long, long time. She spent a lot of time in there.
Wow. Well, I'm kind of hungry again.
Yeah,
I haven't
that
I
and the
haven't
braided
eaten-
roll too. It was always about the braided roll, the braided Italian roll, and how they make things.
Oh, Italian bread's awesome.
It's the best bread in the world.
Yeah. Anyway, well, welcome everybody to the METUS Tech Show. My name is Paul Schaubs. With me, as usual, is Steve Pimentel. Say hi, Steve.
Hey, how's it going?
And today, joining us is Mike Cappuccio.
Welcome, guys.
Right? So
Thanks for having me.
No, you're welcome. No, so tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, your background, and
Oh, okay. Well, I've been in the HVAC industry since I was 18 years old. So what am I, 63 now? I got to keep count. Oh, well over 40 years, 45 years, I think I'm going to say. Now, grew up in it, been around it forever, love the industry, worked in it, worked for somebody for about, I'm going to say 12 years in the beginning, and then I owned my own company for about 32 years after that, specializing in Mitsubishi products. Got on board with it about, 20 years ago. I was one of the early adopters and sold heat pumps for years and years. And I've exited the contracting world in 2021. I sold out my company to private equities. I worked there for years. So now I'm just doing some training and just really touring the country, meeting contractors every day, getting through things, teaching them how to be profitable, just tricks of the trade. And I'm going to say it's the secret sauce of really how to make money. When I always see a contractor, it's like, why did you get in business? And most of the time they say it was for a job. To create a job, and now it's become a business. And they kind of start to learn that it's not a job anymore. Now it's a business. Now I need to learn some things. You see them go from 1 to 2 to 10 to 50 employees, and there's nothing more rewarding to me that like when I come to an event or see a contractor that says, "Hey, I saw you 10 years ago," or you were an inspiration to me, and I had a change, and I've implemented some of the things that you told me that were most times just common sense that they've put into play, and they've rolled it into their business and turned it into a good thing. So that always is very rewarding to me. But owning my own business was a lot of fun too. I mean, there were days, as everyone knows, there's good days and bad days in business, but
anything else.
But I enjoyed it for the latter part of it. So
now you started your own business,
I started my own business, which is it was me and a job.
right? And it
Started
became
a business for a job.
and it became a very successful business. In Massachusetts. So congratulations
Thank you.
on that.
Thank you.
So we were talking earlier, and I was saying, hey, let's think of a topic we can bring up, and it was basically capacity.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, it was, when I roll the clock back, the number one call you would always get from a technician in the field was, here's winter coming, and we had installed a lot of heat pumps back in the, late 90s, early 2000s, where a lot of them weren't cold climate heat pumps at the time. So, I mean, full capacity was basically 47 degrees, and 50% capacity was 17 degrees. And people using those for heating, and truly understanding how much capacity did it give you at that temperature, roll the clock, fast forward a little bit. Now, we have heat pumps that can heat at full capacities at the lower temperatures. But, you would get these calls in the middle of winter, it's dead cold out, and, people call up and say, the heat pump's not working, it's not heating my home. Well, sometimes it was, you didn't really sell it for a full source of heating, but they were trying to heat with it at that time. And you would send the technician out there to go look at it, and, they'd put gauges on it. They'd try and determine things. Let's say they had a 3-zone unit at the time, and, they're like, I think it's working, but, I don't know if it's low on refrigerant or it's not. And I kind of said, we need to do a capacity check on it.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, well, how do we do a capacity test? And I always like to roll into it. It's just a basic, very, very basic test that you do is just measure the supply air, the return air, know the CFM of the fan at your dry bulb or your wet bulb, know the capacity of the unit at the temperature, and let's start to check all three units. Go to the first unit and measure the supply air, measure the return air, see what you get. That's the delta T across the coil. Let's say it's 40. We have a 100-degree air coming out, 60-degree air coming in on the return. Go to the next unit. Get all your TDs across those coils, and now find the CFM out for that particular indoor model. Let's say it's a 12,000 BTU unit. A 12,000 BTU unit puts out 400 CFM, and you multiply it by the delta or the 1.08, and it gives you the BTU. So you do the TD times the CFM of the fan is going to give you the capacity of the unit. If you see that the capacity of that 12,000 BTU indoor unit is only 8, and you go to the next one and you only have 6, and you go to the one after that, you only have 6,000 BTUs, that's going to tell you something's going on at that point. But also knowing what the rated BTUs are for that too, because at 17 degrees, it could only be that's what it's going to give those low BTUs too. So you have to know what the unit is going to give you for the capacity, the rated capacity. So you pull out the submittal, or you get that little Mitsubishi book there that they had, and understand, or go on my link drive, understand what it is, know what the BTUs are, and do your measurements. And within most of the time, 30 minutes, you're going to determine right away, is the unit giving me the capacity that it's supposed to give me at those temperatures. Now, let's say it's a cold day and the unit's rated for 36,000 BTUs. You've done all your calculations and you're giving 36,000 BTUs. Well, there's nothing wrong with the unit. Well, why is the house cold? It's the house.
Yeah.
It's, a lot of times they don't insulate the home or something like that. Getting into whole home, when you do it, you have to check the envelope too, as well as everything else, windows, doors, ceiling. It's all got to be done when you go to whole home and put all that stuff in together to make sure that those barriers are all sealed up. So I can't tell you how many calls when you roll back that there's nothing wrong with the system.
Yeah, and throwing your gauges on, if you do all those things that you said, if you're checking the capacity, you're measuring your temperatures, and it comes out, and that's what you get. Why throw the gauges on?
It is what it is. I always say man has tried to defy the laws of physics for many, many years, but no one has seemed to do it yet. That's what the machine is rated to do, but it's also understanding those heat pumps too. You have to look at the model of the system you're working on and then get the rated capacities at the temperatures. Because, it's even, when you look at it from a higher temperature too, you look at it at 47 degrees, sometimes those 36,000 BTU heat pumps put out a lot more capacity than 36,000 BTU. Yeah. So on the opposite side, and it's just the same for cooling too, in the summertime, flip it around, do those measurements, your supply air, your return air, multiply it times the CFM of the fan, and there's your BTUs of that unit. But go to the first one, write it down, have a piece of paper with you. Go to the second one, supply air, return air, know the CFM of the fan. If it's wet, if the coil's wet or dry, how you doing it for heating mode in the dry, cooling mode in the wet, and do what you got to do. Yeah. The only thing you got to have is a good thermometer that measures wet bulb and dry bulb.
Yeah, and now they're all. Back in the day, you're swinging it around. You look like now they got all digital stuff.
Everything's digital now.
I know. Well, that's being old school.
It just gives you those readings. I can't tell you how many times guys get, I got my gauges on and I got this, I got that, and it's like, time out.
Yeah.
Let's just go measure a few simple. Don't even put your gauges on. Go into the house and check those measurements first.
I agree with you.
Save you so much time.
No matter what you're doing, check airflow first before anything, and then throw the gauges on if you absolutely have to. But there's a common theme here, through several of our podcasts that we've had, and if you have a system and it's doing all it can do, but it's not maintaining a temperature, then it comes down to the load calculations. Is maybe they were never done or they weren't done properly. A lot of guys even today will show up and just take a guess at the load calculations. They won't even look at the insulation. They won't look up in the attic and see, and it's just a shame.
400 square feet requires 12,000 BTUs.
Yeah. There's a story.
Not all the time.
Oh God, not all the time.
Yeah,
What about when 400 square feet requires 400 BTUs?
Right. Yeah.
Again, how well is this house insulated? How tight is the envelope? And how does it all come together? But that was such a common call. I mean, we trained on that. Here comes fall. What are we going to train on? Let's take an hour. Let's train on capacity. Let's go up in the training room. Let's get your thermometers. Let's show you how to do a capacity check. And it's a real simple thing to learn. Like, I got to be honest, sometimes I meet with just contractors when I talk to them around the country too. It's like, and we talk about the last final step of a startup of a unit, and they're like, capacity check. What are you talking about?
Right.
And I'm like, these are the things you measure. And they're like, oh, I didn't know that. And they're like, thank you for that. It's just, again, it's common sense. Do the multiplication and get those numbers in the submittal, and it's going to come up pretty darn quick.
Yeah, you got to put a lot of thought into it, because you could cool a home just fine, but when you go to heating season, you're just not putting out that capacity.
Yeah.
And same thing, the flip side, you do great in heating, but then you're overcooling in the summer, right? And I try and tell the contractors that come to my classes all the time is that, look, you can't just oversize the system and throw a 5-ton system in a house and say, well, it's variable speed. It's an inverter system, so it'll ramp down. Well, no, that's going to get you into trouble. You can't think that. You can't think like that.
I heard that a lot.
I saw that on a recent job that, before I got out, it was a home, a new renovated home. Home was spray foamed, and they put in full source of heat was the heat pump. So they calculated off of the heating load. So they put in 2-3 ton systems in the home with 6 heads. So they put 6 tons in a 2,000 square foot home. But they put it in there for the 72,000 BTUs of heat.
Right.
No heat loads were done, nothing. And here came the cooling season, and it was all right. It was cool, but there was another thing going on.
Clammy.
Oh, the windows were dripping. There was all water running down the windows, and the humidity levels were so high in the house because it wasn't removing any moisture.
Wow. Yeah, that's really, we were talking about that earlier with somebody. That's more important than the temperatures, removing the humidity. Don't change the temperature, remove the humidity. You're going to notice an immediate improvement in your comfort level.
And as we move more and more and more into whole home heating and cooling solutions, which, I know when I got out of my business, when I moved on, 90% of our jobs were whole home solutions. It was like single zone units. That was so far and few between what we did. Roll the clock 20 years, that was a big thing.
Yeah.
Now as you move forward, it was almost an obsolete item at that point. But heat load calculations are a must. Know what's in those walls. Know what's in those windows. How do you know if a home's had spray foam put in it? How do you know if the attic's insulated? How do you know if it's not insulated? All those things you have to know what's going on. And that all plays into the fact of the load calculation and the proper equipment to put in.
Yeah, nothing's changed from 20, 30 years ago. We still have to do load calcs. We still have to do load calculations. Now let's talk about ducted equipment. We talk about wall units and ductless, but let's talk about ducted equipment. You still have to take care in sizing that ductwork correctly.
Yep.
It's a different type of system. It's not a permanent split capacitor motor in these air handlers. They're variable speed motors. So they're going to protect themselves. They got thermistors across the coil. If we don't have enough airflow going across that, it's going to either raise fan speed to try and not freeze up. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into that. Sealing the ductwork, sizing it properly, using a manual J. Right?
Manual D and manual J with that too, because even with retrofitting, Steve, when you're retrofitting an air handler, taking out an air conditioning system, or taking out a furnace, and it was heat. Ductwork was sized for heat. Ductwork wasn't even sized for heat.
Right.
So you have to, and it's not, the ductwork's not insulated, it's not sealed. Most times that ductwork just comes out. New ductwork goes in, it's got sealed, insulated properly. even the right insulation on the right ductwork in the attic, because you have different insulation values in an attic than you do in a basement.
Yeah, I used to come across a lot of houses, built in the 50s and 60s, and the ductwork's just not adequate. It wasn't made for air conditioning. So if you're going to do air conditioning, you're right. A lot of times it's got to come out.
Yeah, the whole home solution is with ductwork. Most times it's best to take the ductwork out that's there and redo the ductwork, because a lot of it's flex duct. It doesn't have you can't push a lot of air through it. It was ductwork that was designed for 25 years ago for central air conditioning.
Yeah. Yeah, and everybody forgets what Flex was designed for.
Oh.
Flex, right, came out in the 80s. Everybody went crazy with Flex, and it was made to be used in 5-foot sections.
Yeah.
Right, and you would run hard pipe up to the boot, and that Flex was just made to connect that boot in the ceiling and for an easy connection. What did we do? We took it out of the box 25 feet. We stretched it. Sometimes we put a sleeve in there and ran another 25 feet on there.
Oh, God.
Listen, I went to a job site. They had the trunk line, and they had the takeoffs, and they ran one box of Flex for every takeoff. They left the Flex inside the box. They opened up either end of the box, and they would pull out a few feet, tie it into the takeoff, and pull out a few feet and tie it into the boot. Everything else was still jammed into the box, and the people were saying, "No, that doesn't work. We just bought the house. It doesn't work." Wow.
Yeah.
If you want a whole home system to perform right, it's nice new metal ductwork, sealed, insulated,
Nice round turns.
nice round turns, minimal flex, like you said, Steve. Connect the box to the flex. If that's what you have to do, if you can even put metal to the metal, it's even better. But having it sealed, I mean, you can't have duct leakage anymore.
No.
They need to be tested and everything now. And I mean, that ductwork, all that stuff that was installed 20 years ago, none of it's going to meet the proper codes or anything that have to be done now. Especially whole home jobs like that, permits are being pulled, everything, duct blast, all of those things that are happening need to be done properly.
I think of some of the things that I did back in the 80s, late 80s, when I got into this trade. I was given practically a kitchen knife and a stapler and some silver tape, and it was ductboard and Flex, and it's like I think about some of these jobs that we did and how they've probably fallen apart, leaking everywhere. It's just insane how things were done.
You're conditioning the attic or the basement more than you are the house.
Yeah.
And I just want to mention, I think we've said this in a few podcasts, but we're at a conference. We're at the 2023 Diamond Contractor Conference, and there's a bunch of people right now that are on break. So if you hear background noise, that's what it is. We're not at a party. We're at a conference. We're not at a nightclub or anywhere else. So just bear with us. The break will be over soon. But Mike, I want to back up to something you said a few minutes ago when you had your business, and you mentioned a training room, right? So you actually spent time. You actually spent time training your guys.
Oh yeah, we did a lot of training.
Yeah. Now, how often did you do that, and when did you do that?
Well, new hire comes in. First, he's got to be trained, because we were just strictly a Mitsubishi Electric contractor.
Yeah.
And I found that it was easier to take one product, focus on one product, one thing, makes your life a lot easier. But new hires would definitely be trained on installation. Because think about it, you hire a new person, they need to know what they're going to be doing, what their expectations are, and we would try to get them to at least point A for the first 2 to 3 days on certain things. How to install an air handler, how to install an indoor unit, how to run a line set. Not anything, you're not ready for charging, testing, startup, controls, nothing like that. So that would come later on. But, new hires were definitely all trained in the beginning. And then we would do training at least once a week.
Wow.
I did a lot of the training myself. Adam did some of the training. We had some people help, but we did controls training, integrated controls training, maintenance training too. A lot of maintenance training on how to do a maintenance on an indoor unit, how to do a maintenance on an outdoor unit. As crazy as it sounds, is how to wash and clean a condenser, what the expectation is. If no one's ever done it before, I need to know how to do it.
Right.
What are the things I need to check? Obviously, capacity testing was one of the things we trained. It was so easy. When you have your own equipment in your own training room to show people what you're trying to accomplish, I mean, what we just talked about, I mean, we could teach capacity training in 20 minutes, half an hour at the most. You know how much time that saves you and money that saves you as a contractor?
Yeah, because that 20 minutes is an investment that's going to save you hours per service call down the road.
I was always, let's train in the training center, not in someone's house.
Yeah,
If
that's a
something
good one.
new came out, if your, integrated controls are coming out, or new thermostats are coming out, interfaces are coming out, how to hook up a cooling plug. Because that's part of the startup when you, when you go back to that, and you have to, put in the box inside the indoor unit, set it up, hand it over to the homeowner. You don't want to be doing that on the fly your first time with a homeowner, trying to read the prompts. I would rather, let's show them how to do it in the training room, make sure they get it down, and make sure they understand that before they go into a home to do that. So,
One thing, Mike, that I loved was one of your YouTube videos that you did, and you showed how to use a handheld remote. Something so basic is going to save you so many callbacks and just those, because you get a lot of customers that are just like, what is smart set? What does that mean? What is powerful mode? What, all these little things that I thought it was just great that you went through and you pointed out what each button did on that handheld remote. It's just a great video, and it's going to save you all those calls.
Too, with that video, Steve, that's actually was my highest hit video.
Yeah, I believe it.
It has
I believe it. Yeah.
tens of thousands of hits on that video. But I got to tell you a funny story about that. Was because when our video people came in, and obviously we're doing videos for a certain reason. We're building out web search with our SEO, and certain things that people search for to recognize the brand and the company and what you do. But I physically had to sit down myself, and I had to read that manual. I knew a lot of the little basic things on that remote, but I'll be the first to tell you, I didn't know how to program with 7 days on it.
Yes.
I had to break that video down into 3 segments because we did the simple part first, we did the top of the remote, then we did the middle of the remote, then we did the programming of the remote. And if you totaled up all of the time, it was 1 hour of airtime.
Wow.
For the that's not complicated, but what you need to understand. But we also use those training videos. Those are videos that we used to train our own people because, again, do you want a technician in a home? Okay, the customer's just spent $30,000, let's say, and we're doing a bunch of different types of indoor units. Let's say there's integrated controls. You have a couple of FS units here with that handheld remote control, and they don't know how to. The customer says, "Well, I want to program the 7 days on it," and
contractor doesn't know how to do it.
Yeah.
Contractor doesn't know how to do it.
It doesn't look good.
No, because that was our tendency, and I'm guilty of this when I was a young contractor, a young tech. Is here's your unit, we just put it in, here's the remote, here's how you turn it on, here's how you change the temperature, here's how you shut it off. That was it. And it's like we never took the time, nobody ever took the time to say, hey, let's go through it like that. So kudos to you. That's a great thing.
It was a great, when I did the video, that was a great video, but I'm going to tell you, it was a learning experience on my part too, but I'm going to tell you, it's a very, very successful video that turned out, on the company's side because
you get an older homeowner, that handheld remote is so simple to us, but to them, that's like an intricate computer to them, and that's going to be a callback.
Yeah. So, and you know what else we did with those for a helpful standpoint, and I'd recommend this to any contractor, is, look, if you don't have the videos, it's very simple to do the video yourself or, look, I don't know, copy what people do. That's what I do most of the time, is go look at it, recreate a new one. But having those for your service team and your dispatchers, because, you get the call the next day. You just installed the system and it's not working.
You can't if you send a guy there, you can't charge.
You can't charge. No, the company's going to lose money. It's profitability that we're trying to obtain is we had a Word doc that said, this is, this type of unit that has this. Go to this video. email it to the homeowner, send it to the homeowner, have them watch the video if they have the ability to do that. But it also gave the dispatcher or the front end person, with, because now you get kind of an irate customer. You've just installed this, it's not working. They can now look at it and say, hey, okay, press this button, because they're watching the video and telling them press this. Or, perfect example, you install a 3-zone system one day on Monday and Tuesday. You're done. Wednesday, you get the call. It's not working. And, you have 3 indoor units you've installed. And, you just ask them, are there any lights flashing or anything like that? We had a simple sequence of what we would ask them. And, as well as I do, if there's lights flashing on a unit, something's wrong. Something's not right.
Yeah.
So, what do we think is wrong? First thing is we have 3 indoor unit systems brand new. It's probably one's in auto, one's in heat, one's in cool.
Yeah, mixed modes.
It's new.
Right.
The homeowner's been playing with it. And like you just said, Paul, it's a callback that it's going to take you a minimum of, let's say, a half hour to get there, a half hour, an hour to play around in the home. It's going to cost you at least 2 hours.
To tell the customer there's nothing wrong, and they're already going to be aggravated.
But that's a loss of $500, $600 for the contractor that day that he could have been making. So have your people trained on how to talk about that, but at least know, let's turn them all off. Let's put one on. Let's put it in this mode. Now let's see, does the air feel cool? Does it feel warm? Whether it's in heat or cool mode.
Yeah.
Again, the call, those little nuisance calls that we know that there's nothing wrong.
And that's a safety thing, because the installer can spend time with the end user when they finish. The job is commissioned. They're going through the instructions, but that homeowner is not going to remember. Now they're going to call the office, and now the person answering the phone, they're going to walk them through them again. But to have a video that you can send them, hey, watch this video. If you still have trouble, then give us a call.
Yeah.
And we'll come out and
Most
look at it.
times you're going to see that problem's going to go away quickly. But, and also think of this. What happens at the last thing at the end of the day is everything's installed. They're walking through with the homeowner how to use everything. It's 3 o'clock. It's 4 o'clock. The technicians are like, look, we're done. We want to get out of here. Most times that last part of that day is being done very quickly. And, an older person or, anyone that isn't knowledgeable with this is the first time they've ever seen these handheld remote controls, Yeah. I like now it's gone to heat and cool. There's a name on it now.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah.
Before we had the race cars, the snowflakes, the Indian flame.
The drop of water, it looks like a flame.
The race cars, the drop of water.
And also, there's something different about the end user as well. So I'm one of those people that when I bought a VCR way back when in the 80s, it stayed on top of my big giant console TV flashing 12 for like 6 or 7 years. I don't want to mess with it. But the people today, most consumers today, they're savvy. They got the remotes, they got the smartphones. They want to take advantages of all the benefits that come with that equipment. And that remote controller has some features on there that they want to take advantage of. So they need to know how to use it. And I think they're pretty it's pretty easy to learn. I think they're more user friendly than they used to be. That's for sure. But they're definitely user friendly, And if somebody can figure out the remote on their TV and they got everything else, it's just another gadget they're gonna want.
Yeah. How many car dealerships have you been to where when you buy this car, they come out and they show you what everything is in that car, what all the buttons are? I mean, there ain't many of those around, but I've had,
I just had it done.
Yeah, and they'll go through and show you what every feature on that truck. And sometimes I'm just like, hey, can I just take my car and go? But that goes a long way. That's part of customer service.
Right. Yeah.
And to the point of that video, that happened to me just this past summer. I bought a car. The guy went through all of that, and I forgot it all. So I had to go look up a YouTube video for the model and the year and the make of the car that I had. And there's a guy going through, that's what I even asked Steve, we were driving someplace, and he's got the same kind of car, same manufacturer, not the same car. I go, what's this button? He told me what it was. I said, no, it's the only button I didn't know, but it's important.
Yeah, you do that with an HVAC system. Now you're reducing callbacks. It's as simple as that. Something as simple as how to change the batteries on an MHK2. It's going to, you get an 80-year-old person at home that's how do I change the battery? That's they're going to call you.
And think about trying to, pair your phone to your car nowadays.
Oh yeah.
I spent the better part of an hour the other day trying to pair my phone to my radio. Like the, it has, you can put your radio in and you can play things on your phone. Finally, I was like, you know what, I'm done. I'm done with this.
Well, I'll
do this on a day when I'm not aggravated, or go watch a YouTube video on it,
Well, I will say this. 11 years ago when I started with Mitsubishi, I would never connect my phone to the cars now. But now they have made it easier. So I don't do it every time, but we did it here. And I'll plug in my phone. I want to use the MapQuest or whatever it's called, Google Maps or Waze or whatever you have. And now I can see it because every car now has a screen you can see it on. So the technology's changing. It's getting easier, and people are coming up. Kids are coming up. They started playing with these video games a long time ago, so they're getting better. It
comes easy to them.
It comes really easy.
Training. You have to train the people. And you know what I find too is, I just did a study with the Harvard Business School. I spent the better part of 3 months with this group of young students on how hard the industry is to hire people now. And boy, what an eye-opener I got over the last 3 months of this. I got paid to do this consulting thing with them, and they were asking me all kinds of questions from the old school technique. And then they were interviewing younger generation trying to get into the trades, and and a lot of it is technology and training. They want to be trained on technology and know how to use things. They don't want to go into homes and install things where they don't know, that they don't understand what they're doing.
Right. No, we need to know the big picture. Yeah, you have to train. That's absolutely true.
It's just, and a lot of times it's who's training them in the field today? Is it field training? Is it training in the training room? Is it training in is it training at a supply house? What type of training are they getting?
Most of the time, they're just jumping in a van with someone.
I know.
That's it.
And sometimes, Steve, there's no common sense training that's gone on in the beginning.
Right. Yeah.
We need some common sense training too, because like you were just saying, customer service. Customer service is huge today when you have people going into homes and doing things. It's the experience. I was in my business. I was always big about the customer experience.
Yeah,
because the customer experience always brought you more business. It always brought you more business. And treat people the way you want to be treated. Treat homes the way you'd want the way you'd want your home to be treated. Going back to the Italian food thing and the Italian culture, it's you don't wear wet shoes in people's dirt floors. You don't walk in people's houses with their shoes on with dirty work boots. It's either shoes come off or shoes get covered. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen people come to my home and do things, and it's just, I shake my head. I'm just like, where's the customer service aspect of this? Because when people are paying tens of thousands of dollars for these whole home systems, make sure that there's an experience with it, not just it's not the installation. You can do one bad thing, and that could be the perfect installation. You could have done that thing perfect, but it would be, that one footprint or that one scratch in the hardwood floor.
Right, and that's all they're going to see, and that's all they're going to remember.
And you want to solidify as much of that as you possibly can when you're in people's homes today, because, again, it costs us money as a contractor. When I'm out and I'm talking to contractors, it's always about profitability. And half of the things I teach are the common sense things that I learned over years and years of time of just things we just messed up on that cost me money.
Right.
It's as simple as just drilling a latten plaster wall. Go slow with the drill. Don't go fast. Put a level on the ceiling before you hang a wall unit. Make sure if the ceiling's not level, and you have to put the indoor unit level,
it's going to look like it's not level.
And then the customer's going to say, why didn't you tell me the ceiling wasn't level? Maybe we could have moved that somewhere else. Again, the common sense things.
And that the wall is plumb and nice and flat, before the hole's drilled.
Is the wall cracked before I start drilling the walls? Were the scratches on the floor before we took the air handler in the attic? Things of that nature, because in having people understand that those things are going to cost you money as a contractor down the line. It's just a lot of common sense, understanding your values, understanding your mission, to make money.
A lot of good things you've talked about, Mike, that, for the technician, the service guy, the installer, things to consider that we might not always consider. And I think, must have been 4 or 5 years ago, maybe less, that it was either ACCA or somebody ACCA contracted, did a survey of business owners, HVAC business owners, and about what are the skills that the students need that you see that they're missing coming out of school. And a lot of these soft skills was part of that, because the tech schools, the ones that do a good job teaching the technical stuff, not all of them have soft skills training and these things that you don't really think about. Like you said, it should be common sense, but common sense is not always common.
I always used to say, if they don't know your expectation, they don't know your expectation.
Exactly.
And we had to start teaching and training. It's, like you're saying, you asked me earlier, what do you teach? Well, some of, day one is the common sense training. I used to call it common sense training. And, HR would do some of it, depending on the department you were in and the type of common sense that you needed to do your job and understand what the owner's aspects, what his, mission and vision was. I'd like people to know my mission and my vision before I send them out there,
Yeah.
So what we're doing, so.
Mike, thank you
Guys, thanks for
joining us. Now,
enjoy chatting.
So one more thing.
Sure.
Our target audience, it's not everybody, but our target audience is the technician, the installer, and the truck. If you had to give them right now one piece of advice to make their life better, what would it be?
Do a load calculation and do a capacity test before you start taking everything apart outside. Get the common sense stuff taken out of the way. Take the common sense out of it first.
And that's if everything is running and appears to be running where you don't have any flash codes, no fault codes.
No fault, no lights blinking, and I just don't start ripping everything apart. Do a few measurements first. Measure airflow, measure supply, measure return. Get a piece of paper and write it down.
Right.
And look at your submittal and see what the unit's supposed to do before you start saying that there's something wrong with it.
Yeah.
All right. Mike, thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you
guys.
very much. Well, words of wisdom. Thanks for joining us. And thank you, everybody, for listening to the METUS Tech Show.
Thank you, guys.
Bye, everyone.